your idea that they're going to use, it's almost like a proxy war that we see in the Middle East. In this case, the proxy monetizer is likely to be the banking system.
Correct.
Because if you said regulatory, let's call it encouragement. And that's kind of what they've done in certain instances already, but they're likely to do it. As you pointed out, the banking system overall has a relatively low level of treasuries compared to the past. Yep. But frankly, it was their exposure to longer treasuries that broke 3 big banks last year. So they're going to have some pretty good inducements to do that. But the Fed is amazingly clever at coming up with those when they need to.
Yeah, I call them the alphabet police. You know, anytime we have a new problem, they come out with a new alphabet soup of programs and policies. You know, like the BTFP. It's like, what was it? I heard somebody say something. Was it buy treasuries at any effing price or something like that? That's essentially what it is. Yeah. So look, I mean, you know, I'm glad we can kind of have a joke and make light of some of these things because, you know, we are, you know, to your point, you made the point earlier, we are frogs in a pot being boiled alive of financial repression, monetary debasement. You know, fiscal profligacy. You know, these are things that are somewhat inevitable in the fourth turning, right? The system is already starting to come apart at the seams, and ultimately, the Federal Reserve is the institution with the most flexible balance sheet that will sort of, at the bare minimum, delay the inevitable crescendo and crisis that we're probably going to go through as Anglo-American society here in this fourth turning. And so, you know, my former colleague Neil Howe, who's sort of the principal architect of this sort of line of thinking, and has performed the research on this, looking backwards, you know, hundreds and thousands of years. You know, if you believe in the fourth turning, then it necessitates that you probably have to believe that these are all, you know, sort of obvious solutions. "Quote unquote" solutions is a very strong word there. These are solutions that policymakers will take to do that. And so the key takeaway is, as an investor, this goes back to the slide I was on earlier. As an investor, you got to understand that we're probably going to be an era that causes, you know, structural bull markets and risk assets, hard assets, you know, things that are further away from the treasury market from the perspective of, you know, preserving value on a real basis. And that's not unlike, you know, we always have bull markets and risk assets, so that's not new. But in a normal regime, you're talking about some, you know, reasonable, you know, "quote unquote" reasonably risk manageable cycles. You're talking about a 10%, you know, correction in the stock market, or in a GFC or .com bust type event, 50% correction in the stock market. A 50% correction in the stock market in the context of what we're talking about could be normal in the context of a Federal Reserve that has to walk this very dangerous tightrope between not explicit monetization, but you do need to monetize, right? You have to, you know, it's a hard dance I don't know. There is no right answer in terms of like what the appropriate path forward is. It's really just going to be a function of whatever the bond market needs from the Fed at any given time to tone down volatility. And at certain times that may actually be tightening monetary policy in order to preserve stability and smooth functioning of the bond market. Other times it may be expansionary monetary policy in order to, you know, ensure that Uncle Sam gets capitalized in a way that doesn't crowd out the private sector, much like what we saw in the summer of 2023, and we're going to see in larger and larger size on a go-forward basis.